Hello, my name is Andrew, and today we're talking about 5 reasons why a wool felt insole is better than all other types of insoles for barefoot shoes. So reason number 1 is warmth, because wool is the most insulating fabric on earth, because sheep, alpaca, and other animals live in extremely cold climates where preserving body temperature is literally a matter of life and death. A lot of boots like the Vivo Barefoot Tracker SG will come with a built-in insole, and this is the thermal insole from Vivo. It's not a bad option. It has space blanket material in there and it's pretty good at reflecting some heat. But the reason wool is warmer is because the fibers are hollow and they actually trap heat inside. And the really cool thing about wool is that even if it gets wet inside the boot, either from water getting in or perspiration, wool actually becomes warmer when it's moist. Reason number 2 that I like wool insoles better is because wool is a natural material. A lot of the insoles that you get nowadays are made out of synthetic materials. And for me personally, I just don't like putting bare skin on the synthetic, but when I do wear socks, I wear the merino wool and gingies. They're about 75% merino, so you have much less chance of getting exposure to synthetic chemicals, etc. Foam usually just has this kind of like weird chemically smell, which I don't like. And although most people don't know this, synthetic materials can actually off-gas little particles, so even if your feet aren't touching them directly, they can be shedding it all over the inside of your shoes, especially a foam type material like this where it's more easy for it to flake off. Reason number 3 that I like wool insoles better is moisture wicking, because the breathability of most synthetic fabrics is poor. So what happens is that it just sort of sits on top of the insole and it makes your feet a sweaty mess. But with wool, what happens is that it disperses into the fabric. So it just kind of travels around and then it takes the moisture out to the other side so that it can evaporate away from your body, which is useful in summer but also in winter, because getting your feet wet is the #1 thing that's going to make them cold. And with wool, like I mentioned before, once it gets humid, it actually gets warmer. Reason number 4 that I like wool insoles better is for their antimicrobial properties, which is a fancy way of saying it smells nice and it doesn't get nasty when you sweat in it, because wool naturally has a structure that's very hostile to bacteria versus synthetic insoles, which have no protection at all. And even when companies treat synthetic with some kind of spray, it doesn't last forever. You have to keep applying it over and over and over again, and you're just exposing yourself to more potentially toxic chemicals, which is why synthetic materials will start stinking a lot faster versus wool, which you can use multiple times without washing it as long as you put it out in the sun to dry, which of course also extends the life of your shoes and insoles. Finally, reason number 5 why wool insoles are better is sensitivity, because even thin synthetic insoles tend to be more rigid, whereas wool felt insoles don't affect flexibility at all, and they transmit sensation as well, so that even with a 4mm wool insole like this, you're going to feel just about everything that you would feel if it wasn't there at all. Although the one downside to wool felt insoles is that they don't have any structure with them, so if you're doing something like trail running, you can get some bunching up, which is where an insole like this from Softstar kind of comes in handy, because it's got multiple layers. So you've got the wool on top for natural materials and antimicrobial and temperature regulating and everything we talked about, but then some structure on the bottom with some foam or maybe some cork or other materials, which prevents it from sliding around or bunching up in the shoe. In terms of sourcing, my favorite place to get wool felt insoles is just on Etsy. There are a ton of stores that sell basically the same thing. I like to get a big sheet and then I just take an existing insole like this Vivo one, for example, or whatever you have in your current barefoot shoe or boot, and then you just trace it out onto the sheet of wool and you use some scissors to cut it out. I'd recommend cutting it a little bit wider than you think you need, because you can always trim some off, but you can't undo it if you make it too small. And then some barefoot brands like Softstar have pre-made insoles. Wildly has some really good ones as well, and they've even got some flax ones for summer, which is a bit cooler than wool. That said, if you'd like to support the channel, you can shop for the referral links down below, browse and filter more products with the shoe finder tool at my website barefootwear.org, or watch my zero drop transition video to learn more about barefooting. Finally, if you have a question about wool felt insoles or about barefoot shoes in general, let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching. Catch you next time. Peace!